So we just got done watching one of the most wild game ones I can remember in quite some time. It was a fantastic game one, and now we get to watch the beauty of the NBA is that we get to watch a game two. Okay, so we're going to be looking at the betting odds here. So you got the Pacers at plus 5.5, and the Knicks at plus 5.5 on the money line. The Pacers are plus 180, and the Knicks are minus 5.5. So the big thing, in my opinion, when we're looking at this game is you you got to know the Knicks got up big in game one. They took their foot off the gas, allowed the Pacers to come back. I think Vegas understands that the Knicks are going to be locked in game two. And the one problem I see with the Pacers is that if the Pacers aren't playing defense, right? If the Knicks can find it and on the defensive end, I don't think it's going to be too tough for them to actually go ahead and cover a 5.5 spread. I just don't think it's going to be that tough for them. And this doesn't mean for the whole series, right? I think this is a series that's going 6 or 7 games, no question. But when we're talking about a Knicks team that just is coming off a loss at home, especially the way it happened, when we're looking at a Pacers team that's really, they're trying to play their brand of basketball. All we really need is on the flip side of this is for the Knicks to kind of play how they played in that first half of the fourth quarter, and even a little bit, in the third quarter, where it's got to be defense first, right? You need to hit shots, you need to score. Don't get me wrong, but you got to start on that end first. That's where this thing will begin. So let's take a quick look. Let's see. So these are all race to whatever points. Okay, we don't need to do anything. Actually, we'll look at team totals here. It's funny. So the Knicks team total over 116.5. The one I would actually like to play here is the under on this. I really think the Knicks are going to lock in defensively. I truly, 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 truly do believe that. I just think that the Knicks understand that if you play the style of play that the Pacers want to play, you're going to lose, right? It's just not going to happen. And I think if they can get up into the Pacers early, if they can make this a little bit uglier of a game and not give up 30 something points in a quarter, I think they'll be able to do that. So on the team totals, I don't know if I like the over, even though the Pacers may not, play a whole lot of defense. But I don't know if I like the over because if the Knicks, if they're really crushing it on the defensive end, we may not see 116.5. But I think they're going to be locked in and hold the Pacers pretty well there. All right, so let's go to game lines now. Is this all alts? Okay, that's all that. I mean, I don't. You could do like a Pacers Knicks, something like that, a tie, and then go the Knicks way. But I don't know. I don't love any of these to be fair. First point score, nothing with that. Okay, we don't need to do any of those. Let's go to player points. Okay, so Brunson at 26.7. That's his average. But clearly 30 plus is that's where they got the line set. I don't hate that unless it is a defensive of game. Let's take a look here. So it looks like 24 must be the 110. It's 120. Yeah, I mean these two obviously they just had big games. Might be slightly overpriced on that. Bridges 18. Look, the problem is you're really guessing, right? They got a lot of players that can have big games, and so 18 plus for Bridges, 15 plus. Anobi. Like which one of them does it? I don't love really either of those. For the Pacers, yeah, I think this is just such a tough game. I mean, all of these, in terms of like these prop bets, both these teams have guys that you could really see go off. Um, Let's take a look here. Josh Hart, I mean, if he has one of his big games, 13 plus isn't tough for him. So yeah, so these are the over under totals. You got Brunson over 29.5, Towns over 23.5, Halliburton 19.5, Siakam 18.5, Bridges 16.5, which like I said, I don't, it's tough for me to look at any of these and say, I don't like them, maybe Neesmith, just because he just had such a great game, you figure that will come back to earth a little bit. You can't go wrong with like a Mitchell Robinson bet here. You know what I mean? If he gets a few offensive rebounds, if he gets offensive rebounds, this shouldn't be too tough for him to get. Can't go wrong with Josh Hart either. But this is just the reason I hate prop bets in a game like this is because really, I mean, you have a bunch of guys that are in like, you have one guy that's at 30. Everybody else is, and then you have a guy at 23.5. Everybody else is below 20, right? They're all kind of hanging around those teens. And it's always tough because you could see a guy like, I could see Bridges having 12 points. right? And then Anobi going off for 20 plus. I can see Bridges going off for 20 plus and Anobi having 12 points. It's just really a tough, thing. Although if you look here, if we take a look at the averages, right, that they give us, so this is tied pretty closely, right? This is basically tied in. Brunson, little over, right, with the averages. But if you go down here and you look at some of Bridges and Anobi, right? I mean, 17, this is pretty high above the 16 and a half. Anobi, right? 14 and a half now. That's far below this. So maybe you look for one of these guys because you figure, okay, if we go over here and we say, all right, let's do 18 plus, right? That's plus 160. Don't hate that at all, right? That's a pretty good. You could say that's some decent value. Let's move to player threes. Yeah, I mean, after last night, maybe you hit this. um, Brunson 3 plus. I don't hate a lot of like when you got a guy like Brunson, he just is kind of a machine. So if you're going to be betting over the course of a series, I don't hate a lot of that, but it's tough for me in this series because I do think this one's going to be a defensive game. So I would be looking at a lot of unders more than anything in terms of player threes and points and all of that. Rebounds, I love Mitchell Robinson, Josh Hart, any of those. I think there's going to be a lot of rebounds for the Knicks in this game. If it's defensive, right, there's going to be a lot of rebounds. I mean, even Cat. I mean, 12.6, not terrible right here, right? That's a decent value. Let's go over and look at combos. Oh, the double doubles. Halliburton. He always seems to just be right around the double double because he does so much. Josh Hart. Let's see who else can we. Bridges, right? He's had one. So these are just some of the odds we're looking at. Points, rebounds, assists. Jalen Brunson, 40 plus. Halliburton, 35 plus. It's kind of funny because Halliburton, he might not have the scoring numbers that Brunson has, but he does so much. I mean, rebounds, assists, right? He does so much. Towns, I mean, Towns, he even though he missed that free throw late, he had a really, really good game. So maybe, we could see him play that way again. But once again, I like some of these mid-tier guys, because Anobi is a guy that could score 20 plus on his own very easily. And you look at what we're getting, I just don't see the point in kind of going when these top guys when Anobi could have 20 plus. I mean, there's no question about it, right? And so plus 425 at 30 plus, if he can get some rebounds, get some assists, I really like. If I'm betting props in this game, I'm hanging around a lot in that middle. I think it's going to be a defensive game though, so I don't think that helps. The Pacers to me are just completely like their prop bets. I'm completely out on them unless I'm doing unders. Combined prop bets, not much to see there. The head-to-heads, I don't hate that. This is head-to-head in points. I actually do like this a little bit. If you think Mikal Bridges is going to be the one that has a great scoring game, right? Kind of that third piece helping out Cat and Jalen Brunson. This feels like a pretty good spot. If Halliburton's one of those guys who could have a rough scoring night and still do a lot. Pascal Siakam and Anobi. Once again, if you think Anobi's going to have a big game, right? It makes a lot of sense. If you think Towns is going to have a down game, we're getting 5.5 on this, so you just got to keep that. That's kind of the problem I've recognized with a lot of these prop bets when you go through is everybody, you go through it. It's like all of these look good to me. I'm looking at it. I'm thinking, oh, I can see that. I could see that. Let's go over here to team props and then we'll probably end the video. But yeah, okay. So we got total points. Like I said, I'm thinking this is going to be a defensive masterpiece from the Knicks. Now, I always get nervous when I predict something like that because if the Knicks, let's say they got up big and then, let's say they're up 20 plus, and then in the fourth quarter, they give away a lot of the points, and let's say the Pacers get it down to 10. I mean, the fact that there's like a late run that could make it maybe a little bit less of a, you know, um, like a defense on the stat sheet may look a little bit less like a defensive masterpiece. But I think the Knicks are going to be locked in on the defensive end because I just think that's how they got to win this series. It doesn't mean they have to hold them to 80 points. It's not what I'm saying. But if they try to play the Pacers brand of basketball where it's just, let's try to score, I just don't think. I think you're giving the Pacers a better chance to win the series. Do I think the Knicks could win a series like that? Sure, but you're giving the Pacers a better chance to win it if you play that way. So thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.